Welcome back, Warriors. Here we are again today, and this today's subject is something that somehow, some way, fell through the cracks of my mind, and
Both of
Warrior
ours.
Waldo was right on top of it. So we are going to talk about basic training. We're gonna try to figure out throughout years of different people going through basic training throughout the decades. We're going to try to pin down what has changed, what we can look forward to if you're joining the military currently, and just kind of go through the experience. So, Ori Waldo, um, you've retired, so it's going to be a bit farther back. But
Yeah.
what were some of the things that your recruiter told you that would happen in,
Oh,
and then what actually happened? Like, take us through day one.
sure. So basically, what me and you are trying to figure out is how does it change from when I went through in the early '90s to you went through what mid 2000s?
Yes.
Okay, good 13, 14 years between there. So I'm going to start with day one when the day I walked into the recruiter's office, and as recruiters do, they're used car salesmen. They sell you a bill of goods that you find out later on was a bunch of crap. But my need to get out of the house and move on with my life and my need for some direction trumped anything he had to say.
Really?
I walked in with my best friend at the time, and we were going to do what they called the buddy system. I don't know if that exists anymore. Back then, they called it, you can go with your friend, you go through the same basic training flight and all that stuff. I took the test, I got good scores. He took the test, he couldn't even qualify. So
You're a
now I'm a
good friend.
solo act. And I took my test scores were high enough to get into the career field I qualified for. So I qualified what they called a GTEP back then. Now it's an acronym for something I can't tell you what it is. Basically, it means it's a guaranteed job.
Oh,
I got a guaranteed job to be EOD. Cool. Gave me a gigantic $1,000 bonus for graduating. It wasn't a signing bonus. You had to graduate EOD school. You have to government takes your tax. That was about $800. But this is 1992, so that's not like a good deal to me, who wasn't making much money at all doing anything else.
exactly.
I was told that I'd be making enough money. This is how full of crap my recruiter was. I was told that I'd be making enough money where he's getting ready to get a 1993 Nissan Maxima T-top.
Ooh.
That car never existed. But he would take parts of what I said because he's like, "Well, what's your favorite car?" I'm like, "I like Mustangs, but I tell you what, the IROC Z's with the T-tops are really cool and all that." Well, he's taking all the stuff and put together and selling me this dream that I'm gonna have. Tell me about how much money I'm gonna make and how I'm gonna be the envy of all my peers and all that.
Sure.
That part's kind of right. I mean, even though I didn't make the money he promised me, it was the envy. He told me there's going to be the two worst days in your entire life. He said the day you go to end process at MEPS, I think it's still called MEPS,
Yes.
and military and processing, something like that.
Yes.
And then the first day of basic training would be your second worst day. The MEPS and processing day was a long day of prodded, not literally probed, but they check everything out about you, see if you're actually going to pass and all that. And it was not too bad. So I'm thinking, okay, well, if that's not too, what's the first day of basic training is going to be like? Knew some people who went through Air Force basic training. Our grueling 6 weeks.
Yes,
of
the
basic
Air
training
Force.
back then, and about how hard it was. Comparatively speaking, Army, Navy, Marines. I don't know. I can't speak for you, but basic training back then was an absolute joke. And it was basically 6 weeks of in processing, filling you full of injections and all that. For the first time, instead of putting a needle, I did the air injection, where they shoot a thing of air through your skin that pierces your skin. It actually hurt worse than a needle. So I'm like,
Yeah. What?
I guess they got rid of that because it seemed like you've never even heard of it.
No. Maybe I'm weird though.
Maybe they quit doing it because they have some freaking form of common sense. I don't know. But what I'm trying to reframe back what it was. I mean, by the end of 6 weeks, you had to run 1.5 miles under a certain time limit. You had to so many push-ups, certain amount of sit-ups, and God, I think that was it in a 60-second time period. Other services look at ours and they think it's a total joke.
Sure.
My first night when I got the basic training, I had a mullet. I had long ass hair.
Nice.
Okay. And they start running through people, and they call people up one at a time to get their records. And this one dude, whose hair was shorter than mine, but still pretty long, oh, they exposed him. And, well, look at this, wannabe, blah, blah, blah. And you're allowed to use, use the word faggot and all that back then. Yeah, you're allowed to use those words that are not considered derogatory. And I'm sitting there, oh my God, wait till you see me, But luckily, they're running behind, so they start forming lines for people. And I got one of those lines, and I kind of like ducked in under the radar to get through that until I got my head shaved like everybody else did and all that.
Smart man.
Basic training for 6 weeks in the Air Force, of course, it's not what anyone else goes through. We had that one day, I don't know what they called it when you went through. I can't wait to hear your story. They had that one day where you're supposed to swing over a pool of water on a rope, climb over walls. They called it Confidence Day.
Yeah.
There was no pass or fail. If you couldn't go over the wall a certain amount of times, they'd scream at you, call a bunch of names, but they'll let you run around. You keep going to the other side. Punishment wise, when I went through in 92, they could make you do push-ups. But it was very infrequent and not used as a form of punishment. And they almost never, ever made you do them by yourself. Somebody screwed up the entire flight.
Sure. Okay.
And then, when I heard how hard it was, that first night is a shell shock because you're anticipating the worst. Full Metal Jacket had just came out maybe a year or two before I went in. So I've watched that movie. I'm like, oh my God, is that what I'm going to be experiencing? It wasn't even close.
Do you think that's because you were Air Force and not Marine like in that movie?
Sure. I mean, but the thing of it is, like I said, I talked to these guys who I went through high school with who eventually went on to go in the Air Force. Oh my God, it's so hard. I mean, you really better have it together to get through it. You better be physically fit, which I wasn't. I was a very skinny kid, but by no means was I, physically fit on the air terms.
You're not a marathon runner.
Definitely was not no marathon runner. In fact, I'll get into a little story about how I actually got through basic training with a cracked heel.
Oh.
But, yeah, my body tried to fall apart on me as I was going through, so I made it harder on myself. That was just the weakest. I literally had an Achilles heel. Whereas, people who are born normal, which I wasn't, probably got through Air Force basic training pretty easy. So, you went through later on in the mid-2000s.
Yes.
Take me from the first day of recruiting, where you're sold a bill of goods, I assume, all the way to that first night where you started basic training.
Well, first I want to just make sure that all of us warriors understand that there's going to be differences in between your experience and mine in basic training, chief among which, and we'll just hit on this one, I was joining in 04. So 9/11 had happened, and we're in 2 countries now instead of just the one.
Yep.
And it's wartime. Whereas, correct me if I'm wrong, you were Cold War era.
Yes.
Basic. So it wasn't. When I was going through, there was more. Hey, you can get deployed to this bad place. Where for you,
you were getting ready to go outside the wire. I was staying inside the wire, protecting the base. Right. That was the biggest difference.
Okay. Yes. That is a great way of putting it. So, oh my goodness. First, the recruiter. My recruiter was a special kind of something. he was an EOD tech, and
Wow.
yeah, this was his sob story. He had been at his base. I forget which base it was, but he had been there for about 15 years, and he was like, you know what? Maybe it's time to change. But he didn't want to get out of EOD. He just wanted to do something EOD adjacent. Unfortunately,
Uh-huh.
what happened for him was he got non-voluntary, uh, it's like a change of job or something. He was told that you're going to be a recruiter for 3 years.
That actually did happen early 2000s. I
Oh,
remember that.
okay.
Yep.
So this, as long as this part of the story checks out for him, I still respect him, right? No, I always respect you. Uh, he since he was EOD, he had a very not in my career field type situation. He wasn't trying to find people, even though for recruiters to get into if the candidates, I guess we're called the troops or whatever, the airmen, if they get to uh, graduate that whatever job they you got put in, they get some sort. The recruiter gets some sort of kickback on the end. But since he was EOD, he had a real hard time with promoting EOD to people because he was like, no, this I wouldn't want you as my team member because he was at the age of being a team chief. So
Wow.
he had only put in, and I was the third, only three guys into EOD from my little part of the world. So he was special. I did have the scores good enough to get into this job, which has a 70 to 80, depending on when you are, 80% dropout, not what dropout, washout rate, meaning you don't get through the school.
Right.
So you get to be ushered into a different job in the Air Force. They're not going to let you out of your commitment to the Air Force. They're just going to put you like at security forces was my biggest thing because
Cook.
I didn't want to be a cop.
Cook was mine. They
Being
made
a
you
being a
cooks.
cook.
Or security force, mostly they made you a cook.
So yeah, that's something that we're we're not trying to do that. Um, so oddly, it took about 4 or 5 months from the day I told him, yes, I want to do this. I'm signing whatever paperwork he has in his office. Uh, in 3 months, I went to MEPS to do that, and then in another 3 months, I
Okay.
actually went to go to basic training.
I would say my time frame was about the same as yours. From this first day I walked into his office, it's probably about 3 months before I actually went through MEPS. And it's probably another month or so then I reported to my first day to be shipped off to basic
Right.
training. But that doesn't sound too far off.
Okay,
I know
that's
you
good.
can't say the name, but I'm dying to know who this person we recruiter was because I know a lot of people got non-involved into recruiting. Do you remember what base he came from? If not, it doesn't matter. We can talk about it offline.
I don't know why, but my brain is saying Little Rock right now.
Okay.
I oh man, that's gonna just annoy me all day. Anyway, so that 6 month, I'm going in. I don't know what to expect, but I do know that I got to make this work because I just got married. Warriors, you'll find that on a different video of my little life story right before the Air Force.
If I can interrupt you,
Sure.
before you went to base training, did you talk to anybody besides your recruiter to find out what you'd be going into when you got to base training, what to expect from basic training? Or did you go on there just completely blind?
Definitely not blind.
Okay.
What had happened was I was into computers, and I was really good at it. I went through a computer tech school that was hot there in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then the dot-com bubble switch, not bubble switch, bubble burst. And there were jobs where people with 15 years experience were just accepting entry level jobs just because there was no jobs there, completely overqualified, but basically there was no reason that I would be getting a job as just, fresh out of college kind of guy. um, I worked at Target as the security guard, and I was talking to one of the guys that he had just joined the Air Force, or he was signing up and joining the Air Force, and he was trying to tell me, and he tried to get me to be part of his whatever. I don't know if I actually got that or doesn't matter. I didn't go to the Air Force recruiter first because I didn't see the Air Force recruiter's office. It was like a small mini mall, and it had from right to left a water. You could buy water there, like filtered water, stuff that you see in office buildings, like water cooler type things. Um, then you had the Navy and the Marines, and then you had the Army. Now, what I was, in my youth, stupid not to see was the Air Force was right around the back of the Army, but it just wasn't, it was off the side, no one saw it. So when this gentleman was telling me at Target, hey, I'm joining the Air Force, I'm like, where's the Air Force recruiter? I've only talked to the Army for 2 minutes and the Navy for 10, because at least the Navy guy wasn't completely lying to me. And then I talked to this Air Force guy, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I am badass, so I'm not trying to be a Marine. I think I'm kind of a mama's boy at the time, so probably the Army isn't the best place. Let's try out the Air Force. They won't hurt me. I thought I would be getting into medical because I thought I wanted to, med chicks. Sorry. He got as the recruiter's talking to me, he sees my scores. He sees, whatever I'm telling him, and he envisions this guy may be able to do it. So he talks to me about it. What really got me was one of our EOD's special missions, which was VIP missions, like supporting the president in clearing offices and places where the president would be of explosives. You and I did that for president uh, way back when, and that sold me. I mean, I love blowing up stuff, but to be part of the Secret Service at 20, 25 even. I mean, sure, I'm in the Air Force, but in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, I can do something so cool, and it means a lot to whoever is president.
Did anyone tell you how hard basic training was going to be?
There was, I think I was fearing a bit too much about
Okay.
it, because I'm a big guy, as we've said. I was varsity soccer, so I had no problem with athletics. That wasn't my particular fears. My particular fears was, since I didn't understand what the military was, uh, I didn't know that maybe I would just not understand parts of it, and that was just not the case. So, and this is where I think the differences will come in, because it seems like our recruiter experience is about similar. They lie to us, but we kind of all know the game. First night I get there to the to BMT, basic military training as they call it, in the Air Force in San Antonio. It is the middle of April. It is a hot, muggy night, and I'm only used to California weather, and I was just sweating constantly. And they do the put down, pick up, put down of your bags, and I'm frazzled, and this is part of the stress that they put you under for basic training. So, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm getting paid to do this. I'm getting paid to learn, and kind of paid to screw up too. That's part of learning. But what I'm finding the difference is was I was talking to another gentleman a couple days ago, and he was saying that you didn't have to get yelled at. Like
Oh,
they couldn't yell at you in your face and give you the knife hand. Thank you, angry cops. If you didn't get the knife hand of doom, then it wasn't important. Did you get them? Were they able?
they were absolutely able to yell in your face.
So I don't know.
They were absolutely able to make you do push-ups. Like I said, it was like corporal punishment. They made everyone do push-ups
Right.
when someone else screwed up.
And then,
But in basic training, even it was a female commander. I can't remember her name now. She was a lieutenant colonel, I believe.
okay,
Stood there in front and says, "Look, Air Force basic training is basically just 6 weeks of in-processing." And that's really all it was. Now, there were people who would fall out of their flight and have to fall back to another flight to get through.
sure,
But even if you did that, most likely you were going through, unless you were just a total. And to be honest with you, as easy as Air Force basic training was, people's biggest thing for getting through was doing the physical part. They couldn't run
Sure.
the mile and a half. Now, I cracked my heel about halfway through basic training because it just wasn't used to the impact. The way my body's built, I don't run like normal people do. I slam my feet in the ground instead of roll your feet. So my body was taking impacts it never felt before.
oh,
So I cracked my heel, and I dealt with that for a while. And basically, the day before I had to take my PT test to be done, to graduate, it says, well, you can roll back another 3 or 4 weeks, or you go out there, tough it out, and make it happen.
ooh, got
That's what I did. And you always, in Air Force, you don't do individual runs. You always run as a flight. So you
Sure.
pass, and I got through, and the weather was coming in. So we never bothered doing push-ups. We never bothered doing sit-ups. They just wrote that part off for us. That was Air Force basic training in 1992.
Well, 04, we were a bit different. For that, we're going to take a quick break here, Warriors. Smash some sort of button. Hopefully, it's the like or subscribe. Again, Wookiees are dumb; they can't talk. If we can get this thing going, then we can get even more quality videos for you. Thanks, guys.